This is The Big Breakdown, a long look back at some of the biggest stories we're covering for you at the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
There's a lot of talk right now about the Epstein files. Every time the Epstein story comes back into the spotlight, the same pattern repeats. The headlines focus on politics, and the core issue, the exploitation of kids, and the adults who may have looked the other way, gets buried. These new emails are no different. They raise serious question about who knew what and when, not about who wins an election, but about whether our institutions are capable of honesty when powerful people are involved. For years, this case has revealed one uncomfortable truth. The system protects adults with influence far more aggressively than it protects children who were harmed. And until we face that, nothing changes. So today, we are stripping off the politics. This is about right and wrong. I'll say right now, every person that we are talking to today, any thing we're talking about, everyone that's discussing this, whether the person is right or left, the people we're talking about, whether they're right or left or center or whatever, if they had something to do with this involving children, they should go down. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. I don't care if it's someone I voted for, you voted for, everybody else, whatever. If you're involved in this shit, gone. No questions, their policies are this. I don't care. Your policies don't matter anymore because you're a monster. Transparency versus secrecy, accountability versus protection, and what these new emails actually mean for an investigation, an investigative and behavioral standpoint, not what anyone wants them to mean. Joining us is retired FBI Special Agent and former Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke. Let's start at the beginning. The thing that, the big headline, I would say, as of right now, as these emails are coming out and people are digesting them, Epstein himself in the emails claiming Trump knew about the girls. From an investigative standpoint, what are the possible interpretations of that? Because knew something was wrong is very different than knew exactly what was happening. And in no way, shape, or form is that anyway pulling back the curtain or saying, well, let's forgive this a little bit over here. Or like Megyn Kelly somehow questioning if an adult is into a 15-year-old, that not being a pedophile. That was an insane comment. That's not at all what we're saying here right now. Let's talk about this specifically. And Trump knew about the girls. That's the allegation that is in some of these emails. Direct words of Jeffrey Epstein. Your thoughts?
So first off, I think it's important, and you just did a great intro, Tony, to talk about the political, non-political side of this. And first off, I want to kind of caveat this with, if you're hoping, if people hope to hear something when something news breaks, that means you actually have a bias, because you want to hear something that's going to confirm what you want to hear. So when you hear something, because this is my reaction to when I saw this break, my reaction is, oh, I hope I hear this. I hope I see this. I hope we learn this. My reaction is always oh, that's curious. I wonder what's in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder what this means for the investigation. And so when I saw these emails break, my first reaction was, let's see if this leads us to new leads, new information that we don't already have, because my investigative hat goes on based on a behavioral observation that, now granted, here's the other thing too, a convicted pedophile trafficker of girls, so zero credibility, that plays into it, says that someone was witting. Because then the first thing I do is I'm looking hard at, does this give us new information? Does it give us new leads? Or is this just tell us more of what we already knew? So that's the first thing I looked here. So Trump knowing about girls, okay, let's see if we got any new leads we can do and new leads we can cover. So that was my first reaction, was, do we have anything new we can start doing something with?
Sure. And it's I'm not in any way trying to make this about Trump. Obviously his name is being brought up in these new emails, which is interesting. It's part of the equation now. If it's there, he's there. And that's what we're trying to break down here. And I know a lot of people, and I think this is key. You have to deal with the facts on how they come, and what are the facts? What is reality on reality terms? And you're exactly right. I think the thing that people need to be cautious on here, because people get caught up in their own politics and this or that. And again, not trying to make this about politics at all. But if you already don't like Trump and you hear these are coming up, people are just salivating for information that's going to say he was doing this or he was doing that. Well, guess what? We don't really have that in a lot of these emails. We don't. But we do have mountains of shit over here that are pretty bad, that do point to awareness of what may have been going on, and a whole bunches of other shit with other people. So if we're just going to keep jumping on the train over here and going, well, what about Trump and the girl? Like, well, there doesn't appear to be a lot about that, but there is a mountain of shit over here. How about we focus on that rather than, if you want justice, if you want people to be held accountable, go after the areas where that can actually happen. Let's talk about those areas, not just keep throwing platitudes and hopefully something sticks over here. There's nothing that's going to get you discredited faster and shut the conversation down is if you keep jumping on information that doesn't exist or keep claiming there's information that doesn't exist right now and keep trying to throw it out there. You're going to get shut down. And then no one's going to take seriously the other mountain of shit that you're not looking at. There's a big mountain of shit here. And that's what we need to be talking about.
Because the real goal of this entire thing is because I really don't see, unless something, because if you just look at the arc of this investigation and you look at the arc of other investigations with high profile people, the likelihood that we're going to see anything at this point, especially the amount that Trump has been under investigation for so many things for so long, the likelihood of them coming up with more things that are going to implicate him or potentially even anyone else, unfortunately, at this level is pretty low because we would have been aware of it already. There would have been indictments already. There would have been grand juries already. So we're just not seeing it. But what this gives us more things for, this mountain of shit, which is, I think, the really root cause and root thing we should be focusing on here is this victim-centered transparency. You know, because this is what actually it's our attention on this. It's our ability to focus in on. Yes, it's not illegal, the things that are just disclosed, but what it is completely unethical. It's completely abhorrent. It's completely, turning a blind eye because you don't want to get involved. So it's our ability then to make the victims the center of attention, so we can force the transparency. Not because, again, prosecution-wise, it's low, but what we can do is we can start changing laws. We can start changing statute of limitations. We can start giving people counseling instead of giving it to the instead of to the perpetrators. I mean, because instead of handling the perpetrators of these crimes with the kid gloves, let's take care of the victims. Let's make sure there's never victims again, because I think it's these kind of dialogues that force that kind of transparency where they also feel safe. Because I did such a deep dive on this one again, looking at the numbers. Again, we only have 4 of the victims out of hundreds that have actually spoken up because of fear or whatever else went on. Yeah. And then I also looked at this too, Tony and Stacey and Todd. The likelihood of, and this is why I say the likelihood of more coming out is so low. And here's why. I looked at the number of, because I know FBI agents that have been fired, that had quit. For whatever reasons, when the new administration took office in New York City alone too, and across the DOJ, since as of yesterday, during this administration, I think 5,500 DOJ current staff are gone, fired, bought out, or quit under pressure. 30 plus FBI agents fired, 3 plus executives ousted, 90 plus prosecutors fled DC U.S. Attorney's Office alone. Maureen Comey, who was recently fired, was also the head of this investigation. So out of all these people, I'm telling you, if there was something in there that a disgruntled someone fired that knew something would be able to share and shed light on, it would have come out.
But isn't there just a level of fear? This is such a hot case. There are so many powerful, very powerful people attached to this. At the end of the day, don't they just step back and go, I need my pension. I need my family to be safe. I need all of these things.
So in all these cases, those things are already gone. So fear does play into this, but then we can look at other cases that it didn't play into that were actually, so you have Bill Cosby, you actually have Weinstein, Diddy. I mean, there's been a lot of very similar cases at that kind of level. I think the network of this is much greater, obviously, but there's other cases of, again, all I'm doing is trying to bring a flashlight to shed light into dark places to understand why we're not seeing more when we know there's so much abhorrent behavior that was witnessed. And the reason why we're not seeing it is because I think fear always plays a factor into human behavior and why they're making these decisions. But when I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at past cases, the arc of probability of them being some bombshell coming out is pretty low because, for whatever reason, I'm just saying it's low.
And I don't know that it's supposed to be a bombshell or is going to be a big bombshell where everything is just neatly packaged and here's what it is. I think this is a slow drip. I think it's insidious. I think it's a lifestyle. I think it's a way that they lived their lives and how society functioned for decades, if not centuries, and it slowly crept into a world where it slowly became unacceptable. And there was half that are like, this isn't okay. There's half that are like, well, this is just kind of how we do things. Yeah. And we're looking at that intermingling, woven area where they're both kind of there. And we're more over here now, where there's not as much of it. But there was a level of it. But it's not just all a whole. And I think that's why we see these little pieces here and there, and why you have, I think it's death by 1,000 cuts, but these are big cuts, every single one of them, and they involve big people, every single one of them. But all of them have different reasoning, different motivations behind the people who are covering things up. Some people covering things up out of fear, some people covering things up out of ignorance because they truly believe that there's nothing going on here. And some things, people covering them up out of shame, out of I lived in that world for a while, and it seemed like this was okay and normal, and maybe they participated in it, and they're like, that was really fucking wrong. But if this ever comes out, this is absolutely horrendous. So you have all different motivating factors as to why people are not talking about this. But I think as a consensus across the board, we can look at this and go, there's shit being covered up.
Yeah.
It feels like it.
Yeah, it feels like it. And that's the problem. That's the challenge of it. It feels like it. And I guarantee it is, because this thing is so, just talking about it makes you feel so deflated, doesn't it? And here's why. Because when you read Jenna's book and you see emails and statements like this, and you hear Epstein's statements, Maxwell's statements, and you see the normalization that it seemed to have had, and whether it's in this Epstein world, Weinstein world, Diddy world, it's at high level when you start having this kind of power and control because of financial resources. The normalization of abhorrent behavior really, it strikes you at your core of, if this is the dream that people are trying to achieve and chase, well, who the hell wants to chase that? I mean, it really kind of resets and recenters your own personal compass too, I think, of what we pursue as individuals in humanity, because this is not what we chase. But again, well, it shouldn't be, but that's why I'm the glass half full on this kind of stuff, as you all know, is that I am celebrating the courageousness of those that actually are calling, as Tony said, bullshit on this and saying, hey, let's full transparency. We got to protect and allow those people to feel safe that actually do have the information. Because at this point, more prosecutions, it's going to be a challenge because the friggin' law is protecting them.
And I don't even care about, I do care about prosecutions, but I don't think that's even the goal of most Americans at this point.
Yep.
It's expose these fuckers for who they are. Right, left, center, I don't care.
So we can't vote them in anymore. So we can't have them lead us. Yeah.
So they can't function. So no one's going to spend money with them. So whatever they have, whatever they're going to live off of, fine. And if we can prosecute them, great. If we can't, great. Whatever. But they need to be stopped and they need to be exposed. And this needs to stop being a norm and something that the rich and the elite and the powerful hide behind. And this is not, and in no way am I saying like this is a common normal thing for most rich and powerful people. I don't think it is. I think you have a small sect where this shit goes on, and that's an even weirder, darker sect of society that does exist. But it's not certainly an across-the-board statement of people who are wealthy, who have worked their ass off to get there. There seems to be two paths that we go down here on this. You have either basically dismantling everything or dismissing everything because they're going to say Epstein's a liar. Is he? I mean, on some things he is, and other things he's been pretty blatantly honest to his own detriment while he was alive. And then you have people just believing everything because it fits a narrative of where they want to go. And the reality is, truth is somewhere in the middle of all this. And that's where, I think everyone needs to be very cautious as they get vitriolic about this information as it comes out, because you don't want to stake your camp in an area where, well, this seems like where I thought I wanted to camp. Yeah, but turns out it's not as fertile ground as you thought it would be. But here's the bigger camp over here that really needs some people at it. Like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of shit here. It may not be exactly where you think it was going to be or where it's going to land, but we have to deal with reality on reality terms. And there's a lot of reality that's starting to come out.
I think the volume of people that are witting of what was going on, who did see girls running around, it's huge, because you can't have, potentially 300 to 400 girls that were trafficked, if not more, that weren't witnessed by all the people that he was touching base with, because this is what he did. This is what he normalized in these people's lives. And so, I think that's why I think is, because I know people say people are covering up. I think this is very, very much like the Diddy case. People that you would think would, on the Diddy case, would come and scream, say, I saw this. All of a sudden we had silence because of fear, because of at what level do you say I was witting or unwitting? And if I was just, see what I mean? People have rationalizing their own rationalization of it. Yeah. But transparency.
Well, and I want to hit this right away, because this is the comment that we always see all the time in this conversation. Yeah, Bill said it right here. Yep. Why didn't the Biden administration release the information? Nobody can answer that. I can, because they were covering it up. Yep. That's why. Why isn't the Trump administration releasing it? Because they were covering it up.
I think both sides have been covering this for
That's
decades.
your answer. So, when we try to lead it down this path of political vitriol, no, it's not. Because they were covering it up. They shouldn't have been. They were. Everybody has been. All the way back to Clinton. All covering it up. Not necessarily because those in power or that the president, maybe, who knows, sometimes they may have been involved, but because there was too many other powerful people in their ether, in that bubble, that they were protecting for whatever reasons it was. Not an excuse, but that's the reason. They were covering it up.
So again, it's the powerful people protecting the powerful people. And I think what happened is this web is so big and it touches so many people that no administration could walk in and go, well, this needs to be released. They're going to go, oh, we're going to be in trouble.
No one can go into this conversation with a team and say, or a team that is Team Biden, Team Obama, Team Clinton, Team Bush, Team whoever.
Right. Other than Team Human.
None of those can be on your team, because all of them failed at this. Every single one of them from every party. So you have to go into this independently and go, you all failed. Every last one of you. 100%.
I've said it before that either we protect children or we don't. So either you're all in that we need to take care of kids from the beginning until they're 18, which means feeding them, getting them food, protecting them from predators, or we just don't. You can't do some of it and not all of it.
So again, I keep going back to Jenna herself in On Nobody's Girl and the things that she said in that book. She became, to me, I got my goosebumps and I'm getting misty thinking about her. She was one of the most courageous people in this entire thing. And I've seen it in a lot of places, because she had the courage to say where she failed. And even though she didn't fail because she's a victim, she felt like she failed because she helped bring in other girls, right? So what we need, here's my challenge to anyone that was part of this. Fucking man up and say, all right, I did it. I was part of this, and I'm going to take you all down with me. Yep. Because all it would take is one person. Because you're right. It's either none of this happened, or it happened across the board, because that's the only behavior pattern we hear here is, and again, Jenna said it herself in her book, that didn't serve her any good because she is gone. That is the greatest credibility you can have, is that she got nothing from this. And she, in her book, was non-political whatsoever. It was across the board. It was scientists. It was researchers. It was presidents of universities. It was politicians. She didn't distinguish between left, right, and it was just everyone. Anyone, because think about this. Epstein was a pure soul ripper, not a human being, nothing. And so he did not have a political affiliation either. He was trying to service only himself by compromising everyone in every position, so no one could line up. So think about this. He could not create a team that could be against him, a party that could be against him, an oligarchy that could be against him, a university that could be against. He had to compromise everyone in order to be successful, and that's exactly what he did, and we're seeing the downplay of it now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a argument of us against them in terms of Democrat versus Republican or Republican versus Democrat or whatever. This is morality versus immorality, and that's the two sides. Which one are you on? And that's really what this is about. And when you start getting into the gray areas of, well, they covered up for this or covered up for that, and like, well, that's immoral behavior. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you were doing the horrible things to the women, but if you were part of the immoral behavior, you gotta own up to it. And whether you knew at the time or not, but you gotta own up. You gotta be honest. Here's what happened. Here's how I saw it at the time. Here's what reality is. This is horrible. It is what it is.
Step up and do the right thing.
And not all power corrupts absolutely. And what I mean by that, and we all think it does, because I'll tell you, just reading her book and being part of looking at all this horrendousness, you're like, oh my God, I might as well just live in a socialist society because anyone that's got power is just corrupt. No. I just finished reading Ryan Holiday's recent book on wisdom. It's the last of the 4 virtues of the Stoic philosophy. And I've read all his content, and he leans left. He's very open about it, and he does a good job of going through here. And he promotes Elon Musk and his how great he was at certain things, and then he goes into how he's completely downfalled because of how he treats people and how narcissistic and self-centered he is. He says the same thing about other politicians. And then I was thinking, well, he's just being politically sidelined here, but what he then does next is, and this is Robin Dreeke's half full connotation of this, he then goes through history. And through history, which he does a great job of, he highlights the people that did have wisdom, that did have power, that were not corrupted. I mean, we look at the Warren Buffetts. We look at Marcus Aurelius, probably one of the greatest of all times that we look at. We look at the Benjamin Franklins. We look at the Leonardo da Vinci's. We look at the people through history that did have the influence, that did have the power, that did have the innovative, creative spark in them to change societies. And a lot of these people we're mentioning here did until a certain point as well, until they're corrupted. So it is possible to be in a position of great leadership, of a great influence, and that kind of power, and not be corrupted. And that's why we do things like this, to hold that full transparency for these victims, to hold people accountable. Because without that, loving critics, which I think us as a society is for our leaders, we are their loving critics. And hey, dumbass, stop doing stupid shit and hurting people. Because only when you do that, do you hold them accountable so that this crap never happens again. Can you imagine?
100%.
We are talking with Robin Dreeke, retired FBI Special Agent, Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, about what's going on, the new Epstein emails that have been dropped. There is certainly more that continue to come out, and it is a prickly place right now, trying to break it all down and trying to see things in a clear light, one that is not shadowed by the optics that we all have in our own opinions on politics this way or that way. It's looking straight at the facts of, if someone did this, whoever did this, no matter what side you're on, obviously it's not okay, and it needs to be called out, and they need to be exposed. In some of these emails, Epstein also calls Trump a dog that hasn't barked. I found that an interesting phrase, and I don't even know how to take it. I'm curious from a behavioral standpoint what your take is on that, Robin.
Yeah, so it shows a lack of closeness. It shows his typical objectification of individuals, and also shows he's not an insider in his tight circle. It looked like he was in Epstein's mind that he was a pet that was able to be controlled from his standpoint, in that viewpoint. So it's I think the way he regarded Trump, calling him a dog like that, is probably how he regarded absolutely everyone, with the exception of maybe Maxwell herself. Other than that, I think that just gave him insight, not necessarily on Trump as an individual, but how Epstein saw pretty much everyone.
And everybody was a tool for him to use.
100%. And that's why he went cross, because he wasn't trying to ally himself with Trump or with Clinton or with Bill Gates or with the prince over in the UK. This was all about servicing him. I mean, and you can see it with how he regarded all the girls. Yeah. He thought this was exactly how people should be treated. It's the sickest, mind-blowingest thing when you read that book, to see how he saw people. He didn't see him as people, because remember, he's not a person himself. So how can you view anyone else as a person when he's not a person? Remember, soul ripper. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Inhuman.
And he was able to live in an ecosystem that never proved him wrong. I mean, even when it did, it handled him with kid gloves because of the information that he possessed on so many other people. That's why he had such a slap on the wrist the first time he was indicted and arrested for his crimes. And then he comes back out, and then he's like friendly with all it. It's like, I compare it to R. Kelly in some ways. Just as society treated R. Kelly, where we knew what he did. There was video of him violating a 14-year-old girl in his bathroom in front of his Soul Train award. And everybody's like, well, maybe it's not him. I want to step in the name of love at my wedding, so I'm going to go with that. And that remix to Ignition, that's a pretty hot jam. You got to admit, all that stuff over here, him with the 14-year-old, this is how society treated R. Kelly, and he had a huge career even after all that came out. And Epstein was able to essentially do the same sort of thing. It wasn't in spotlights and music videos in the R&B world. It was the rich and powerful and the elite that still felt safe enough, just as music artists felt safe enough to go and do a duet with R. Kelly after that shit, to go on tour with him after that shit, because the public said, nah, we're okay with this. So the rich and the powerful continued to have relationships with Jeffrey Epstein even after they knew the allegations against him. And the DOJ says there is no evidence that Trump participated in Epstein's crimes, even in some of Epstein's own writings. Epstein even says Trump didn't get the massages. Now, you may not like that. It may not go with the narrative you want. I'm not a huge fan of him personally. I don't care if you are. You're entitled to that opinion. It doesn't fit the narrative that I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to hear this. But I'm okay with that because it's reality on reality's terms. There's a lot of other shit here. There's a difference between no evidence of participation and no ethical concerns at all. Those are two different things, and they're very different in terms of what is prosecutable or not. Can you speak to that, Robin?
100%. We've said that on this show numerous times. Just because it's not legal, just because it's not illegal doesn't mean it's ethical. We've seen this all the time. I mean, in this case, especially going all the way back, and you hit it, his lack of he was prosecuted back in the early 2000s and convicted, and he got a slap on the wrist. Yep. That slap on the wrist he got says more about the sentencing guidelines and the sentencer, the prosecutor in this case, who wound up going on to serve even other higher places in our government, says more about them than it did about Epstein. And the fact that, again, the brazenness of the normalized behavior is what was really shocking for so long. And that's what I think is just so, because the behavior never changed. He was never changing his behavior. Even after Prince Andrew, he didn't change his behavior. None of these people change their behavior because there's zero need in their own minds from what they saw, from the power they had, from the compromising information they had. And I don't even think they thought necessarily about compromising information, because that would be thinking too hard. They were just being who they were, which is these abhorrent people. So, yeah. Did I cover the question? I don't even remember. I got sidetracked.
I think you did.
I'm going to talk about, the victims themselves, and there seems to be a fundamental crack in how one sect of our society is looking at this and how another sect of our society is looking at this. And I don't know any better way to make an example of this other than what Megyn Kelly said just the other day. And I'm kind of shocked by it. The only thing I could think, and I hope she comes back and walks it back and says, look, I misspoke. Because we all misspeak. It happens. She's human. We're all human. She equated... there's a big difference between, and I'm paraphrasing here.
It's bad.
Well, there's a difference between a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old, and that she's really close to somebody that knows almost all the details about Jeffrey Epstein, almost all of them, not everything because nobody can, but almost everything, and that Epstein was into the barely legal, like 15-year-olds, and this is what she says. 15-year-olds and things like that. They're not 5, they're 15. And just kind of moves the conversation along as if that's okay. As if a 15-year-old, as if an adult interested in a 15-year-old is not a pedophile. Like that's what was insinuated. At least that's what the conversation seemed to convey. And I hope to God she just fucked up her words and that she didn't realize how that came across, was caught up in the interview, was moving on to the next topic. I get it. I do interviews too. I get it. You kind of, you're playing ping pong here, back and forth, and your mind can move very fast. And I hope to God that's what she meant.
I hope
but
so.
I don't know if it is or not. But even if it's not, there is a good sect of society that will look at it that way. That, well, she went through puberty, so now she looks like a woman, so that must make it okay. And there seems to be some weird acceptance that people are like, well, he wasn't diddling 5-year-olds or allegedly, but it was 15-year-olds, so that somehow makes it less bad.
They're close to the age of consent. They're
somehow makes it less bad. Like, no, it doesn't. They're both children.
My only response is read the book.
Yeah,
you see the impact of that action, and besides, when people say things exactly like that, you sound exactly like Epstein. That's exactly what Epstein said. That is exactly word for word what he said to rationalize his abuse of little girls. He said, well, in some societies and some time frames in history, this was completely acceptable. If you go to this state, it's this. The age of consent is this, and age of consent is over here is this. And besides that, I don't remember if I'm almost positive, I can't be 100%, but I'm almost positive that a lot of the photos he had was of girls younger than 15.
Yeah.
So rationalizing, abusing girls, I don't care if they've been through menopause. I mean, not menopause, if they've been through puberty or not yet. It's stupid. You look at
what? Yes. Why is this even coming out of her mouth? Why is this even why is there even any rationalization going on? I mean, it's not rocket science to say someone looks physically different than at 15 and 5. Of course, yes, but it doesn't in any way, shape, or form make it more valid or less or more of a temptation to justify that an adult can prey on that person with less consequence because she looks more mature than a 5-year-old.
And I'll tell you what, the way Epstein did this and Maxwell did this, I don't care if they're 15 or 25.
No,
right. They were manipulated.
The book.
Exactly.
They were trafficked. So this is a big problem in our society. Tony, you and I have covered cases like this before with serial rapists, because that's exactly what this is. So when you get a certain part of our society where girls start getting trafficked like they did at this age, they are trafficked all the way up until they friggin' die. Yeah. And right up into their 20s, 30s, if they live that long. And the psychological destruction of that human being, it doesn't matter if it's 15 or 25, they're being trafficked, they're trapped, and they get trauma bonded, they get guilted, they get shamed, and they get manipulated the hell out of. And so it doesn't matter if they're 15, 25, 30, that was an abuse and enslavement, because that's what trafficking is. It is enslavement. Well, they say, you know, and then here's what I say to because I get it. If you never touched it, tasted, or felt it, you know, where you got really close and really gritty in the minutia of the impact it has on the victims, you don't get it. Read the book. It's got, to me, I've been harping on this one. This is like mandatory reading for anyone that is truly trying to understand the impact that this inhuman individual like Epstein has on human beings. I don't care the age,
from the start, years.
It's even worse at that young age. But it's because remember, Jenna, she died in her 30s, and she's still traumatized by this. All these girls are. It didn't.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
There was a comment a couple of days ago. Somebody had watched us talking about this, I think a week ago or a week and a half ago. And they said nobody chained these girls to the massage tables, or they weren't locked up, or something to that effect. And I wanted to comment back, and I stepped back and I went, this is a person who has not seen somebody who's been traumatized and manipulated and trafficked. There's so much fear around this. And Megyn Kelly making that comment, it's so cringeworthy, because how many victims are out there going, well, I was going to say something, but wow, we're normalizing this behavior that, you know, close enough.
Wrong.
Yeah, it was Megyn Kelly having a conversation with another female, too.
Yeah, and that just...
like, what fucking planet are we on?
You're supposed to be able to go to... Robin, was it you that said find a person with children that's a safe person?
Yeah.
Yeah. A discussion that we had about if you're out in public and you're looking for somebody to go to when you're in trouble, it should be a woman who has a child?
That's why I'm it's hard to imagine she's not going to retract that in some way. I mean, she's a mother.
I hope to God. I mean,
at this point, I'm sorry. At this point, if I don't normally get involved, but Tony, you said, you know, sometimes when you're interviewing, you're trying to get to the next thing on this topic. Yeah. If you are a skilled interviewer, you are very careful about how you handle that interview. And obviously,
especially with sensitive topics.
She was not. And also, that's when your true self comes out, are in those moments. I will say that till the day I die.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you're too close to the fire, when you're too connected to these individuals from a political standpoint, which she is, you're human. She's human. And you're going to be influenced one way or another. And the modality of going down a road trying to somehow rationalize the number 15 and putting that number out there, picking that one and saying that is somehow acceptable. There's like two roads I think you can go down here with this. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you protecting this? Or is there some sort of rationalization and something else going on inside that individual that's trying to make sense of their own trauma and trying to normalize some sort of horrible shit that went on with themselves? And I'm not saying I have no fucking idea what her history is, what her story is. I hope to God she didn't suffer through some sort of shit like this, but that's the only other modality I can think of that someone would be trying to rationalize some sort of shit like this to somehow soften the blow of their own trauma that they are trying to deal with themselves. And I'm not saying that's what's happening. I don't know the answer, but I'm trying to give some grace here because it's so fucking out there, but everything is so out there right now.
I don't want to give grace because Todd brought up a very good point. You know, we prep before we come on the lives here. We do our research. We write up questions. We lots of research. Robin probably more than anybody.
Prepping. It's just fucking common sense. You don't say, like, unless you're going to say, why would you even say that? It's not like you're just like reading like if you're just reading your prompter and this is what's coming up, then you're a shitty interviewer.
Well,
I mean, but even then I'd be like, I read my prompter in front of me and I made the questions. And sometimes I'm like, I don't like how that's worded. I'm going to change this.
I went in and rewrote my questions before we got started. So
70% of the questions I ask are not pre-made.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how that comes out of your mouth if you're a sane human being.
I still can't get over though. I don't think it matters even if it was 15. If any of these girls were 20. So
yeah.
It's still abhorrent.
It's still abhorrent.
It's still wrong. They're still trafficked. They're still enslaved by these people. All I can keep saying is read the book. Read the book.
Yeah.
You know, I've covered these cases. I've covered my own cases where people have done abhorrent things, but I've read journals of the bad guys. I've never read anything by the victim.
Yeah.
This was a victim's transparent journal of her life and what happened to her. I have never in my life read something like this. It gave me, and I view myself, hopefully, and other people too, as an extremely empathetic, caring individual that champions the rights and the liberties and the mental health and wellness of absolutely everyone, especially children. I have two. They're my life. They're everything in my life. And this book, so matter of fact, my daughter, it was my birthday this past weekend. As y'all know, my daughter came home for my birthday and she had one of her friends come. And her friend, my daughter is bragging a little bit, say, hey, you know, my dad does true crime stuff with Tony Brueski. And she goes, oh, really? And the girl said, her friend says, I'm reading Nobody's Girl. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Did you two just talk for hours on this?
Yeah, but I said, and she just started, I said, and I cautioned her. I said,
yeah,
this is a powerful book, but I said, you got to tread lightly, touch your toe in that water, because this is powerful stuff. Because that's the impact this book had on me. And I'm telling you, for anyone that makes a comment like that, if you read the book and still make comments like that, you need some counseling.
Yes. I don't know any other way to slice it. I really don't. And I don't know. I just
And as
don't
a
know.
woman, it's incredibly disappointing that
I
she
think
would
that's why
say
we're trying
that.
to give grace too, because I'm shocked because of knowing a little bit of her background, a little bit of what she went through, why she left Fox and having kids.
Right.
You know, I'm like,
look, they watch our show. They've reached out to us before on guests and stuff. And, you know, I respect her as a journalist, but I saw, I'm like, what the fuck are you saying?
Yeah.
Seriously, Megan, step back, retract that shit.
It's a moment.
Please.
I'd welcome her to come on with us and explain what she meant.
That'd be great.
Jesus Christ. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just, my head is spinning on this. I can get political differences. We can have different opinions and view things this way, but what the fuck was that? Yeah. This is 1,000 times more vile than the stupid shit she got fired at NBC for on the Today Show. I mean, this is just like, what the fuck? This is like fundamentally weird. There's reports that agents were told to flag Epstein records that reference Trump and other powerful figures. People are going to have this in their mind, and it may be true. It's reports. You've lived inside that world. You know, what kind of what does that actually mean? Are there things like this that happen? Are there things where it's like, okay, we're going to go through this, but if you find this, we don't need to know about that.
Not on that angle of it. So remember, I come from a world inside the FBI where I saw I understand the background. So a lot of times when I'm shining my flashlight in dark places, I know some people get angry sometimes, but I'm just telling you like the bureaucracy works and why there's certain things and how we did certain things a certain way, yet when it grabs the public eye, it's easy to say, well, it's cover up or it's this or this. No, I'm just telling you how the bureaucracy worked and why. And this is one of those cases. There was numerous cases that I worked or instances throughout my career where we're told, hey, go through all your interviews, go through everything, go through all your files and find anything related to this. We were never told to do anything in my 22 years with the FBI to find it so we could cover it up. Mm-hmm. We were always told to find it because we had to disclose it. And if we couldn't, and I'll tell you, the threat of reciprocity, if we did not find everything and was later found out that we didn't disclose it, was massive. I mean, we'd be put under an OPR for that.
Could that be used in reverse, though, where it's like, okay, your job, go find this, and you don't know that it's necessarily you're disclosing it, but what's the purpose of disclosure? I mean, is it to release it publicly? Is it to be part of the file? Or is it to, okay, find this so we can redact this?
I was just going to ask about redacting. Is everything we're going to see redacted?
Like, find it. We need somebody to find it.
True.
But there's a reason for finding it. It's not to like shine light. It's to let's sweep this away.
In every single case I've ever had, every single, I can't name them all off the top of my head, but I think there's at least 10 to 20 times throughout the course of my career where we're given a bureau-wide blast, find anything related to this. Mm-hmm. And we're always told why, and it was always because we have a congressional mandate, there's a FOIA request, there's something. So we were always told the reason why we had to find this information and how and where it was going to be going. But the likelihood, again, because I just go to laws of numbers, for someone to collect all that information to cover it up, I don't know. That just doesn't work because there's too many people who would know it. So if someone put out an all call for information, the likelihood that that's an all call to shove it in a corner someplace, slim to none, because it just wouldn't work. Just the human, again, look at all the people that were fired. Look at all the people that left. There's just too much. There's too many holes in that bucket to be able to fill to be able to do that effectively. The other thing that came up and it'll come up sometimes too is if for high level people that we're investigating or have to interview, because I know a lot of times someone has to be flagged that, hey, say we have to go interview. Like I've been part of this when my buddy was doing insider investigations and leak investigations. I mean, I was very close to guys doing this, where we have to go interview the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of War, whoever he is now, or the president or members of Congress or anything. And what happens in those cases, very similar to these, is they get flagged, not flagged because they're going to be treated special. What typically happens, at least in all the cases I've been involved in, there can be outliers, but 22 years I'm involved in a lot, and I didn't see anything that deviated from this. And that is, these people get flagged at this higher level so that you can bring an executive with you at a similar rank with the investigator. So what happens is, say Robin Dreeke, I'm a GS-13 journeyman level as a special agent. It is my case I'm operating. Say I have to go interview the Secretary of Defense, or say I have to go interview a member of Congress, a senator or something. What will typically happen is that an executive from headquarters, that's a senior executive staff member, in other words, they have the same sort of civilian rank inside the FBI as this individual, will come along on the interview with the investigator who's actually doing the interview themselves. Why? I don't know. It's protocol, but it's never an influence type thing like I've been part of anyway. Typically, the executive will sit there, a small chit chat, and then and they'll hand it off to the interviewer, and the interviewer goes. So that is typically how it works, at least in my 22 years.
I want to throw this out there because this is kind of an observation I made yesterday. And sometimes, with time puts things into perspectives. You kind of go, oh, I didn't quite see it that way. I feel that way when I watch Dateline a lot. Even when I watch Dateline on stories that I already know really well, it's like, oh, well, when you kind of put the pieces together of the puzzle like this, new things emerge and new ways of looking at things emerge. And I don't know if I've just been blind to this the whole time. I mean, Epstein's death in itself in 2019. Obviously, a lot of people, myself included, I don't buy that he killed himself. I don't think that occurred. The fact that you don't have any cameras, that there just happens to be all these oversights that would have been able to prove that, in fact, he did it himself, don't exist, and this didn't work right. Bullshit. He was killed.
It's what me say a outlier of probabilities.
Yes, it is 1,000%.
An outlier of all
so we had that. And the thought process was, powerful people had him killed. I don't think anybody said specifically it was this person that had him killed. It was that probably a collective, maybe one that had the insight or the power to do so. But now we have perspective of these emails. And we see the dates of these emails. And we see who they were from. And who they were to. And what they were discussing. And when. And what. And there happens to be a lot of shit about Trump in them. And again, not Trump that he was doing things with the girls, but that Trump had a lot of leverage, or that Epstein had a lot of shit over Trump, business dealing wise, professional wise, enough that could destroy him professionally. Could get him in trouble financially. Just a lot of shit. And that's the mountain of shit over here. And it's interesting because he's talking about this in these emails. He's talking about delivering this information to Russia. He's talking about having this information and being able to hold it over his head. And then suddenly Jeffrey Epstein dies while Trump is president of the United States. Maybe. I wonder who had him killed.
Oh, God, here come the black SUVs.
I think
they're pulling up now.
The challenge.
I'm not saying it was him. I'm just saying I wonder. Because you put things in certain places, you go, this is curious.
So with all the emails that are able to be coming, I think about 2,000 pages or something like this. Here's what I think. I think that list of people that could have done that is so long.
Yeah,
it is. And this is just another one, but it's like all these emails line up where it's like talking about disclosing shit to all these.
I will go down the conspiracy theory path with you, which I never ever do. If we're looking for a pattern of behavior from past conspiracy theory conjecture, the only one that really fits a pattern, Clinton.
I was just going to say, or Clinton.
Right?
Or Clinton. No, you're exactly right. You are exactly right. Without a doubt.
People have died in Clinton's wake. I mean, there's a circle there.
You're right. No, you're right. And this is about dealing with reality on reality's terms.
Right.
Yeah.
No matter who you like, whatever. It is reality. There is a track record there. If you believe those conspiracies of a lot of suspicious deaths around the Clintons. And there's a shitload of them.
There are.
And yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. So I would say the email evidence with Trump also rather curious. I don't know. I am saying I wonder, but it's another set of data that leads up to person with power, with information over a lot of people that suspiciously dies right at a crescendo of where this person is at the height of their power to expose you at one of your most vulnerable times and the most powerful time in your existence. And that's what Epstein held over Trump at that moment in time. He also held it over the Clintons. He also held it over a ton of other people too. So I don't know. I mean, I'm literally throwing it out there going, I don't know, but that's a new observation.
So here's what I'd be doing if I was the investigator and had access to all this thing as a behaviorist. Because again, I just look at the behavior and I look for patterns. So we have a pattern of at least one individual known, convicted, and dethroned of Prince Andrew, or just Andrew Windsor, whatever hell he is, right? So I would take that as a baseline of someone who is very witty of what was going on at a high, powerful level. You then take an overlay of how that communication goes, the words, usage of the back and forth, and now we have a profile of someone that was on the inner circle, inner knowledge, who was corrupt. All right. We then take that as a baseline of what we're typically looking for the types of communication, language used. What did Epstein refer to him as a dog or not as a dog? I mean, any kind of little clue you can get. You then take that as the model and you overlay it with all the other people that had email communications with Epstein and see what stands out from that baseline of normal. Because there's going to be a lot of just routine emails that are going to be baseline. And then you're going to see the Andrew one. It's going to be a spike. We're going to take that spike, take the profile of that one and see where it overlays with everything else. And that just gives you, all right, we have some smoke. Now we got some big billows of smoke. Let's go investigate these big billows of smoke and see where this leads us. And that's what I'd be doing as the investigator is like, I have a known entity. Now I'm going to model that that known entity and see who else might fit that known entity and see where we need to investigate further. Because again, I'm not saying yes, Trump, no, Trump. I'm saying my conjecture is that Trump is one of emails that probably sound a lot like a lot of other emails that he was talking about. That's because and it might not be, and it could be an outlier, but we don't know if it's an outlier or not unless we have a baseline of how Epstein communicated with a lot of people. And that's what I would like. That's what I'd like to see. I would like to see who stands out.
It's another it's a chessboard, and Trump is one of the pieces on that board.
Yes, one,
and he's one. And that's I mean, he happens to be the one that's in a certain place of power right now. At the time some of these things were going on, of what he did or did not have knowledge to, he was at a very different place on that chessboard. And Epstein is the one who's the player. He's the one who was playing the pieces, and all the way up to his death. And it appears as though some of those pieces on the chessboard somehow got a mind of their own and found a way to kill the person playing with them. How many of those pieces? I don't know the answer to that question, but that observation, I think, is one to note in terms of timing. There's so many questions that are still left unknown. The fact that we don't have a lot of these files yet, with tons of these emails are dropping, and they're going to continue over the next, probably for the rest of our lives.
It's like New Year's Eve.
You know, but the reality of it is, and I'm going to ask you this, Robin. Why should the public trust anything that's coming out in any of these emails or any of the Epstein files or any list or this or that? There's been plenty of time to redact whatever needs to be redacted. There's plenty of time to delete shit that needs to be deleted. There's plenty of time to do all of this and all of that to create a public ready version of it. And all the government has to do is say, well, it encroaches on national security, so we're not going to tell you these names of these certain people. And it very well might encroach on national security because of people being compromised for these very reasons. But at the same time, that uncomfortableness, that possibility of a national security risk protects the people simultaneously.
Yeah. I would just go down the road of, does this make sense behaviorally that this would act like this way? But where I'm not looking for things that are going to be that I don't believe, because we're going to see tons we don't believe and that we're going to be skeptical of. What I'm looking for is an individual, an organization, an institution that does this. They say, in further review, we got this wrong. We made a mistake. Here's what we now know. And when they share that information, if it's not a good look for them, yet they still have the courage to share it, I'm paying attention to those people. Mm-hmm. Because people that have the courage to say, I made a mistake, are the ones that have a lot more credibility than anyone else. Because everyone else is saying, not me, not me, not me, and they're pointing over here. Those are the ones that I never believe. Wholly, because there's a lot of rules of human behavior. One, we're all going to act in our own best interest in terms of our safety, security, and prosperity. For ourselves and those we care about. That's what we're seeing right here. People are acting out of fear and their own safety. Here's another rule of human behavior. That is the greatest thing when we're looking for assessing trustworthiness in others. We are all working on something. All of us are incredibly flawed. The people that have the courage to share their flaws and share where they're vulnerable and say, here's where I'm a little broken, but here's what I'm doing about it, those are the ones you can trust, because those are the ones saying, I am broken. I'm not perfect. Everyone else around us, they're all saying they're perfect. Don't believe them. They're not.
And there's self-awareness, which so many of these people seem to not have.
Namaste.
And that's,
Namaste.
Without a doubt. All right, we solved the world's problems again. Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent, former chief of the counterintelligence behavioral analysis program. Your current book, Unbreakable Alliances, available wherever books are sold. Go check it out. As always, invaluable having you on. Thank you so much, my friend, for being here. There's a lot more to come on this topic. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of these conversations wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. Your comments are certainly wanted and needed. YouTube is where you'll find us. Search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Until next time, for Robin, Todd, and Stacy, I'm Tony Brueski. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast. This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacy Cole, and Todd Michaels.
We're going to keep talking about this because it just keeps getting worse. This isn't about left or right. It's about power and psychology. There's that letter, Jamie Raskin's letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi that come out. It doesn't read like politics. It reads like history repeating itself. A federal sex trafficking investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. Transferred, silenced, and declared dead with a memo. 50 women, 20 named perpetrators, $1.5 billion in flagged transactions by the banks, going, you might want to look into this. This looks a little sus. And suddenly it all just ends. That's the process that the Epstein investigation has gone down, and it all ended this summer. To help us understand how something like this all takes place, how power, fear, and self-preservation can twist the mission of justice itself. We're joined by someone who knows the world from the inside. Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent, former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Because if this was just a bureaucratic blunder, it wouldn't feel this coordinated. So today we're going to go beneath the headlines into the psychology of cover-ups, the culture of silence, and the behavioral patterns of people who choose power over principle. Robin, welcome as always. It seems this is our topic as of the last many weeks every time we talk, but there's so much to dig into here. When you hear that an active federal sex trafficking investigation started in New York. Then the DOJ said, we're going to take it up for you. We're going to keep this going. And then suddenly, nothing. Shut it down after being transferred to D.C. What's your first instinct as someone who's worked inside the Bureau? What's going on?
It's a great first question to ask. Like, what's my first impression? What did I first do when even prepping for today? And in all these situations, because I intimately know the government bureaucracy, I intimately know the Bureau and how we do things. And it is filled with very righteous people in the sense of I always every day went to work to do the righteous thing for the country. Mm-hmm. You know, it was always about protecting American citizens, national security of the United States, our allies, and our friends and family. Everyone around me at my level was of the same ilk and the same motivations and came in for the same reasons. And so my first impression always is, all right, what would compel someone to do this? What would be the real rationale, the bureaucracy and everything behind this? And so the first thing I did on hearing all this again was, all right, so let me do a deep dive. You know, I did a deep dive on the research. Mm-hmm. Let me look at all the cases we actually do. What's actually the priorities? What are the goals? What are the stats we actually track? What funds the government? What funds the FBI from different investigations? So I can get an understanding as what would compel someone at any level to not focus on the Epstein stuff, and what else are they doing if they're not focusing on that? So that's the first thing I did is I do a deep dive to understand what's going on behind the scenes to get that deep empathy and context from a granular level, from an actual operators and lower level executives piece of pie. And so that was pretty revealing when I did that, but it doesn't excuse or help you understand because I really wish I could unravel this entire thing to say exactly what's going on, because every time I come up with here's what would make these things happen in my world when I was an investigator, it falls apart when you look at the bigger picture, because like this last letter that's sent to Bondi is like, all right, that's another what questions, like why aren't we doing more? And because at the granular level, down at the case agent level, there's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't have been followed earlier by a case agent to investigation. Mm-hmm. That is, when you have, I'll give you an example. So from my career, especially when I was working at FBI headquarters, or even as a case agent, you have a stack of cases of righteous work to do, more than you can ever do in a day or year or career. I mean, when I closed my career out, the first thing you start doing is transferring cases that are old cases that you never had time to work on because of priorities, and reprioritizing that stack every single day. As FBI headquarters, we had, as my assistant director in charge of us would always say, you have 3 stacks, and you reshuffle these 3 stacks every day. The stack of stuff you actually have to get done. The stack of stuff you have to get done or you get fired if not. The stack of stuff you got to get done or you're going to jail if not. Which stack do you choose? You got to go for the immediate stack. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? Mm-hmm. So, and every day, what happens is someone on high comes down and says, reshuffle that stack because of this priority, because of this thing, because the Secretary of State says this, because the Attorney General says this, because we have a new stat or measure we have to track in order to get funding, because Congress wants to see us do this. In order for Congress to see us do this, to get our money, we have to do this. And each one of those cases on my stack are very, very important righteous cases, but I still have to shuffle them because there's only one me and all this. That happens in organizations, that happens in businesses, that happens in government, that happens in the FBI. And so, with that long explanation, I looked at the types of cases, these task forces, because the Epstein case was handled most likely off of a task force in both Florida as well as New York. And those task forces have mandates on prioritizing the immense volume that comes in. I mean, I have all the stats and all the numbers. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of cases and leads that come in on trafficking, especially when it comes to minors and pedophilia and all the horrendous things that go around it. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of leads a year, hundreds of cases a year being prosecuted. Each one of these cases requires immense amount of resources, manpower, surveillance, FISAs, subpoenas, searches, interviews. All these things require bandwidth. Now, so here's where I think they're able to try to hide. And I'll say hide because I do think when we see letters from Congress, like the congressman that put this forward, who was it? Raskin put forward.
Yeah, Jimmy Raskin.
There should be some transparency. When you're seeking transparency from Congress, you should be able to have transparency. But here's where I'm guessing from my background and understanding of what they're able to rationalize away on the Epstein stuff is, because when I did the research, the cases they tend to probably most likely, because this wasn't a violation I worked, so I'm looking hindsight, but I know the Bureau because I was Bureau for 22 years. They're prioritizing the cases where there's a very direct threat of violence against children and those being trafficked. So they're going to prioritize those that there's violence, like imminent violence. Then they're also part of that prioritization. There's going to be drug trafficking. There's going to be RICO charges. There's going to be organized crime charges. And so there's a lot of racketeering kind of stuff going on at the lower levels. And the threat against the children themselves is what they're going to higher prioritize. And it's not, I mean, is that not righteous work too?
Yeah.
And so see that, and herein lies the rub. So, when you have a case agent or a supervisor or the field office, they have this stack in front of them. Now, say they're looking at the Epstein case, and the Epstein case has very righteous work in here for all the horrendous things that are going on. And then all of a sudden you have the Attorney General office, the Assistant U.S. Attorney, because they're the actually ones over in DOJ prosecuting these cases, saying, hey, I know this is an important case. I know the Epstein case is important, but what do you got right now that's really hot? Because we need these numbers right now to justify our funding. What children are being threatened with violence right now? And then you can easily pick up this, and this. And now you get distracted with this. And it's not that they can't say they're not doing righteous work. It just got sidelined over here. So that's one way in which I believe they're able to hide the fact that this. And now when it comes to the conspiracy, again, I'm not a big conspiracy guy, because if there was a cabal of people that got together and says, we shouldn't do this, and they're wringing their hands, we got to hide and protect each other. With all the people that have been let go and fired between DOJ and FBI, you'd have a lot of loose lips, sinking the ship of what's been going on. But you're not seeing that yet. But people are saying it's there, it must be there, it has to be there. Here's the types of conversations and ways in which I've seen or could potentially see this happening. It's kind of like what we just said. You have someone at the super high level that's an appointee. Because remember, people that are hired inside organizations like the FBI, we're not appointed. We apply, we work hard, we wanted to serve our country and serve the American people for a very long time. It took me, I didn't get into the FBI until I was 29 years old. And it was a year-long process after coming out of the Marine Corps. So we're talking service. Everyone around me, same thing. And so these are the people that care very deeply about doing the righteous work. Now, when you start highs up, whether it's the Attorney General, Director of the FBI, all these high-level people, they're the ones that are potentially going to be much more aware of taking down government institutions, people that make a lot of money, political appointees, academic institutions. Epstein's network, that's the area up there. And so here's the conjecture that could happen without actually having conversations that can be incriminating. And that is, it's not that they're saying, hey, we got to hide this, we got to protect this person, we got to not look here. It's easy because of the way I just laid out the priorities of protecting children, violence against them. They can easily say, hey, we really need to focus on this. And it's righteous work. And what happens is in any organization, especially the bureau or a government organization, when the boss that is in charge of your reputation, in charge of your promotion, in charge of your feeling of safety, of your paycheck, says this is the priority, and it's a righteous priority. It's not that they're saying don't investigate this. It's not saying ignore this. They're saying this is important today. We'll get to that later, but this is what the hot topic is today. And it shifts and it trickles down.
It feels like it's okay. Look over here. Don't look here. Look over here, because this is worth your time too. This is something really big. This is important. This is righteous work. Look over here, and we'll get to this later. And I don't question the case agents and everybody that's working on it. They're doing their job. They're doing what they're told, and they have to follow what those orders are as to what they're going to be paying attention to. Yeah. But it's the bosses. It's that boss that has basically the large barrels of information, like the Epstein case and all this that was basically handed to them by New York, saying, here you go. Here's everything we got. Okay, we're going to take it on now over here at DOJ. Great. But we got to open the spigot here first and let that information then flow down to our agents so they can start breaking it down as we slowly empty this barrel of Epstein hell. But the boss is saying, no, we're not even going to open that spigot. Thanks for the barrel of shit, but we're just not going to open the spigot, and nobody down here is going to work on this. We got other stuff. This is another barrel of stuff. Work on this barrel. Not this one, but this one's already queued up. We already know there's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of information in here that needs to be processed. Well, this is better. That's the problem. That's the problem that's going on here, because it is, and especially when you have people who've literally campaigned on this stuff. We know there's a lot of people involved in this shit show.
Yeah.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't take a bunch of people in a conspiracy type situation to stop this. It takes one person to say, no, we're not going to prioritize that right now. It's important, and we're not saying it's not important. We're just not going to do it. It's on my shelf. See? What's important to us? It's on my shelf. Yes, that's great. Do you ever use it? Do you ever take it off, dust it off, look at it, try to figure out what the hell's going on there? No, but it's on the shelf. It's important. We're working on this. That's the problem.
I think who is working on it, though.
And it's all too convenient of an excuse to say this is righteous over here too. It's cloaking corruption with another righteous task, basically.
Yeah. I think you're right on. I think the fear factor is so immense that it's paralyzing. I really think I have no other explanation for it, because it's the only thing is I see how they can do what they're doing if there's wrongness there. Again, conjecture. I don't know, because I wasn't part of anything like this, but I've been really close to. I've been part of my own investigations where I wanted to do an operation that I thought was extremely righteous, like recruiting people from foreign nations that could have really done a lot of good for our country, but someone over in the State Department decided a high appointee in the State Department had their own little special gig going with that country and didn't want to offend anyone at the wrong time. So I'm told not to do anything.
Yeah.
So go focus on this righteous work instead. So I'm like, you got to be shitting me. All right.
And you don't have much of a choice in that matter.
No.
It's like, okay, I got to go do this.
Yeah. But it doesn't excuse the fact that they're creating, because what Epstein basically was doing, he was a beta tester for a monster factory. Mm-hmm. Because this is really what it was. I mean, he created, because all these people that are saying it's, we have all these other things. We're going to focus on the violence against children and the organized crime aspects. And oh my God, the millions and millions of dollars that JP Morgan Chase was channeling, all the accounts that were being opened up by Epstein for underage children. Isn't that a freaking thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We're 1.5 billion is what they're estimating.
That's profound. But if you're saying I'm going to take care of this over here, well, the real thing is you could undermine the entire process if you just took down the first monster factory. I mean, literally, this was a beta test of high-level people about how to run a service of underage children to all these high-level people. that are being funded by these yeah, you just got to take down the beta tester.
Question for you. Does what's happened over in England, does that have any factor that they've stripped Prince Andrew of his title? Does that put any pressure on the FBI to start doing something about this? Because that other country said, oh, F no, we're going to take care of this. We are digging into it. Does their pressure, what they're doing, put pressure on our system?
You would think it would, but as we've seen in politics recently, if people don't give a flip about what someone else is doing, it's not going to put pressure on it at all. I mean, the public opinion doesn't be swaying, people much these days anyway. I mean, look at a government shutdown. The entire public, I don't care what side you're on, says this is the stupidest thing we've ever seen in the world, and yet it doesn't seem to get anyone to move. I think it raised it raised the bar of, hey, we got to take a deeper look at this and do something. But again, that's why the Raskin letter should have done something with Bondi, right. But we're still not seeing anything, which is why not? It's like, just again, we said this on the last show. Here's all you got to do. Just have one of the case agents on one of these investigations that is part of the task force, have them brief what's going on, what they found out. Just have some level of transparency, especially for someone who's committed suicide, supposedly in jail already, even though it's against all the laws of statistics. In cases like this, show that. I mean, but again, just lack of transparency allows us to fill in the gaps of what we think it could be, and then just spools out of control. So, what else?
Well, like you were saying earlier, it probably comes down to fear in a lot of this, of what we're seeing out there. Because, I mean, if you look at this and you go, okay, well, these people that are in these positions of power, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, they were placed there by certain people. And if you put morally weak people into positions of power, narcissistic people into positions of power, narcissism will always win. It doesn't mean the narcissist will, it means narcissism will always win, meaning it's going to be self-protecting. Because you put people like this into certain positions, they are going to want to protect their position and their clout and this new world that they have of all of this power. And that's going to trump anything else. That's going to trump pushing for what's morally right, even pushing for what some of these people before they were in these positions said, I'm a truth seeker. My goal is to expose this shit. Kash Patel even said, I want to expose this shit. This is going to go down. And then when you see him now talking about this, it's as if that version of him never existed, and we're all just supposed to pretend that he never said those things. That we should just accept. Well, it looks like Epstein was just doing this for himself. Nothing else happened, and that's where the evidence leads. Case closed. And you can't help but think, what the hell's going on here? This doesn't seem like the same human being. This doesn't seem like the same path that he was on. And why is he saying such insane things that do not match with reality, do not match with the facts of the case as we know them, do not match with the supposed moral compass that he had prior and this passion for exposing this shit? And it's talked about like, well, I don't like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches anymore, in the same sort of tone in depth when we're talking about the Epstein case and what's there and what's not there. It's really stunning to watch, but the only thing I can think of at the end of the day is fear. Yes, he is in power, but if you decide I'm going to keep going down this moral crusade of trying to explore the Epstein files, and the person above him is saying, no, you're not, you have a choice. You can either keep going down that moral crusade, you'll probably get fired immediately, and you'll lose all your power and your title and everything else, or you can keep this going. You can keep getting the plane to go take your 26-year-old, go visit your 26-year-old as she's singing somewhere, which, by the way, she's an amazing singer, everybody. We should all sit down and listen and, turn the lights off, light some candles. But you'd lose all of that, and that comes down to putting a morally weak person in a place of power where they're going to do the bidding for you the way you want them to, because this is how they operate.
And I think when I first came in the FBI, I came in, I think it's like 96, 97 when I came out of the Marine Corps. First director I worked for was Louis Freeh. After Louis Freeh, it was Mueller right after 9/11. He took over. And then Mueller, it was, what's his face? Comey, then Ray, and then I wasn't there for Patel. But there was a shift. And I'm, because, I mean, we're poking at Patel and Bongino and the staff now, but I can honestly tell you, I served under Republican and Democrat leaders, and up until probably first couple years of Mueller's term, I didn't know politics inside the Bureau at all. Towards the end of Mueller's, when Comey came in, all of a sudden it became a thing. And I will tell you, all those things you're saying about, and rightfully so, about the current leadership, I could say it about every single one of them. On both sides. I can tell you the stuff that was shut down under Obama's administration, how we were hamstrung under him as well. Profound on the national security side. It was dumbfounding to me. Because I didn't care, because you don't care about politics.
Because it's not. It's about.
It's not. No, and so what happened, and to your point on that, is when I started being able to, again, the behavioral side of me really started flourishing, because when you start seeing the reasons why people make the decisions they are, because when you have government appointees in charge of organizations, it will be political. There will be fear involved in decision making, because they're thinking about their next job. They're thinking about their people's next job. Because when an appointee comes in, they come in with their tribe. I remember, and boy, the Bureau was a very different place, and those former Bureau people will tell you the same thing. During what's his face,
Comey?
No, way before him. When I first came in, Louis Freeh. Yeah. Louis Freeh had been an agent. Louis Freeh had been an attorney and a judge. And Louis Freeh had, when he came in, he kicked everyone, very much like Patel wanted to do, but is a very different kind of person, because he had experience in street cred with agents in the agents in Bureau. And he came in, kicked everyone out of headquarters, and said, we're going to go just fight crime and serve national security. People were experts in different fields. And I have pictures of me at the FBI Academy in Quantico, running one of our final runs with Director Freeh. Director Freeh came and ran with every single academy class. I got my creds from Director Freeh. He was an agent's agent. He was all about being with the people, for the agents. And even when Comey first came in, he would call case agents across the Bureau. I have a sticky note actually I did some pretty good work, and on one of the incentive awards I had gotten, there was actually a sticky note, handwritten sticky note on like one of these little notes right here on my incentive award, said, nice job, hero, on Jay Comey. So he used to do things like that, but then things went sideways. Then fear took over. Then politics started coming in and getting infused. And so it became a very, very different place. And that's when I started seeing, like we're talking about today, this fear factor, it's profound. The impact on it, on working cases, is profound. And we see it at all levels. At the high levels, we're seeing it with these judges, the favoritism, the confirmation biases. It's just crazy. Oversight and outside objective opinions is what is truly really needed in these cases.
Well,
we're talking about what's going on right now with call it a cover-up, call it a conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, the inaction basically of the Department of Justice as of right now, not diving in, not investigating, basically taking all of the information that we have recently learned in that letter from Congress to Pam Bondi, stating, you had 50 witnesses, you got an investigation into 20 co-conspirators, people who were working with Epstein, being basically, the customers as well of Epstein, and these 50 witnesses, and them saying, nope, there's nothing here, nothing to see. They're all not credible. Never mind the fact it's what put Ghislaine Maxwell away. Never mind the fact it's what was the inspiration for stripping Prince Andrew of all of his titles of being in the royal family. So clearly, there's some legs to this information, and the fact that the FBI and the DOJ is saying we're not going to touch that right now, for no explanation. Despite there being a massive promise to the public as a whole, to the people they serve, that we are going to dig into this, we are going to dive, and we are going to expose whoever needs to be exposed. Party be damned, we're going to do the right thing. And now when it's their turn to shine, when the spotlight is on them, they're like, oh, nothing to see here. Turns out that it's all a big myth.
You know why?
Damn well it's not. Why?
I think having read that exquisite book by the brave Guffrey,
Giuffre, Virginia Giuffre,
Nobody's Girl. When you saw and get an understanding of Epstein's non-political corruption of everyone he touched.
Yeah,
I think when all these people came out with these they were assuming, they were hardcore thinking, most likely in their brains, it's got to be them. It's not our party, it's them. And then when they got into office, then when they're actually reading the files, then we're listening to the accounts of these. I think how many girls did they finally identify total? I mean, there's like 200, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they saw it's not just one party, it's not just one academic institution.
Yeah.
It is everyone at this time. Everyone. It touches all of these narcissistic megalomaniac asses at this high level, so that if they expose one, this entire network that Epstein created, this monster factory, is going to undermine everything and everyone. That's why I think they're not exposing it, because everyone's going down with it.
And that's the reality of it too. It's not, and it's not just that this is a big house of cards, and it's just only their trail of destruction with abusing these women. These people are placed in the house of cards of every piece of our lives, of every institution in our country. And when you essentially put dynamite in all these different spots and then press the button and it all blows up, you destruct the building and everything with it. And then everyone's like, whoa, how do we fix all these holes around here? I mean, so many things will be affected by this if this information comes out and if these people are exposed, because they're key people in key places, in all sorts of key parts of life, in areas that no one is seeing coming, as being suddenly gone. And what sort of damage it will do, it's going to be catastrophic, but it needs to be done. Otherwise, it's just, well, let's keep this pattern going. Let's keep them bringing in more folks who are going to think the same way and keep abusing people in the same patterns that have been going on before. But it feels that, I feel like for so long, the fear has been, well, taking them all out, is it worth the damage that it will do to so many things? And I feel at this point, the American people are saying, yeah, we've been through enough shit. We've been traumatized enough by all this stuff. What's another societal trauma at this point? If it's going to at least take out a good chunk of these people that are still active. These aren't historical figures that are hiding away. They're still very active in every piece of our world today. And yeah, it's time to call them out. But again, you have those people in all these different places. That's precisely why there's this level of power where they're basically telling us the sky is not blue and expecting us to believe it.
And to Duckin's question about why haven't these girls actually named them, in Jenna's book, even though Jenna came out in Nobody's Girl and named a lot of them, she said even in her death, she was afraid to expose some of these people because of the impact it could have on their families, on her legacy, on their livelihood, on their lives. The fear factor is immense. And, as you're describing that, Tony, I was going back to, other cases we've covered and the differences in them. So let's take a look at the Diddy case.
Yeah.
Diddy is very similar in a sense of we had trafficking, we had sexual abuse, some potentially minors in there. And yet Diddy was more like if you're thinking of I think of these things and these people as cancers, right? Diddy was more like a prostate cancer. He's something that you could isolate, you could radiate it, and you could remove it. But this thing like Epstein, since it was so encompassing, it's more like lymphatic cancer.
It's everywhere.
There's no way to capture it all. I think it is so widespread because I tell you, he knew how to protect himself. Yeah. He knew how to, and that's why he acted so brazenly. Him and Ghislaine as well were so brazen what they're doing, acting with total impunity with everyone and everything, because they captured everyone in every single circle, both sides, so no one could play one side against the other. He was the master of manipulating the entire world and corrupting them to his way of thinking. He attempted to normalize this behavior with people who didn't even want it. Because when you listen to Jenna's book, he was throwing these young girls at guys in their 80s that were even impotent in the rooms. And you can imagine that these guys were told, hey, I got a really good young girl up here. She's great at giving massages. And the guy's like, really? That's kind of odd. Okay, I'll get a massage. And the girls are then being instructed to go service them like you service me, like you service so-and-so. And these guys are like, what? And all of a sudden they're compromised because they had a little bit of inkling, that a little bit of creepy in them, and wham, he's got them.
Yeah. Stacey, what are we looking at in the comments for right now?
A lot of great stuff. Alicia says humans are complicated. As Robin said, they are motivated by many different factors. Candy says, name all the names. Name them. And that was something I was going to ask. Again, there seems to be this cloud of fear. People know the names and nobody's talking. You talked about loose lips, that people who've left the Bureau, left the DOJ, they have to know these names. But people are not talking. There is something terrifying the living crap out of these people. What is it?
I think they just don't want to, first of all, they don't want to be associated with it because it'll destroy their personal brands. And if you even put think about it, if you even put your name in any way next to the Epstein name, you're going to be blacklisted, and rightfully so. And Jenna even talked about this in her book. And one of the challenges they had is that there's a lot of people associated with Epstein that traveled to his island, that went to the parties, kind of like the Diddy. Think about it with the Diddy parties.
Yeah.
You had the Diddy parties, and then you had the white party afterwards. Then you had when everyone was sent home. So here's the challenge with investigating this is that, all right, who was just associated with Epstein and who was really with Epstein? And so that becomes part of it. And so it's hard because there's not a lot of facts and data and details to differentiate the two between. And so if you're anywhere affiliated with it, whether you're just going to shut up silently either way, because again, whether it's true or not, remember for years there was lots of strange, really horrific coincidences of people that ever had anything to say about the Clintons all of a sudden wound up committing suicide and being dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people have a lot of fear over what's going to happen to me if my name's even affiliated, if I'm even going to say anything, so the fear, again, humans are complicated-ish, but we are all motivated by fear. But what fear looks like to each of us is what is different. And so that's why they're all living in fear. I guarantee it's fear.
And Gen Z says it's not about politics, but there are a lot of politicians involved. And I think that comment, that struck me. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people.
It's all over.
It is all over. But I think there's a lot of politicians, both sides, that they put on the brakes right now. Like, oh, crap.
The thing that was really more striking, too, was the amount of academic institutions, like high level presidents of universities, researchers, and so because what Epstein would do is he would fund research. Because he'd be like funding this research, he'd be funding this at Harvard University, he'd be funding this out in somewhere at a tech out in California, and so he would fund these research projects. He'd fund these individual researchers themselves and invite them to the island, then throw the great massages at them, and so he was able to get himself entrenched in all these different things and all these different people at the highest levels across the spectrum. So we have companies, corporations, academic institutions, and politicians, all at the high level. That's why this network is so intertwined. You're seeing that level of caste system, really, of them being all potentially taken down because he was interweaving everyone together. For what purpose was he doing it? Make himself safe, because no one's going to take me down, because if you take me down, you're all going down.
Wow.
How do you think some of these folks are handling this right now? Do you think there is intrinsic fear going on with some of these folks at this moment in time, seeing as close, I don't know how close we truly are to any of this information coming out. It feels like we're closer than we have been in the past, maybe not. Do you think that there is a level of fear with them right now that, oh gosh, this could be exposed? Or are they sitting pretty tight right now, still going, yeah, nothing's going to take me down. It hasn't happened yet. Why would it happen now?
I think everyone feels good until they don't. Because I think what people in desperate situations will align the universe and world around them to feel secure in the moment. And then they breathe a sigh of relief. All right, so we got Bondi to do this, or we got Patel to do this, or the FBI is doing this or not doing this. And so they're able to kind of maneuver themselves into, I'm good. But then all of a sudden you get one thing that happens, like, the Crown removes the prince status from someone, or a letter comes in from a congressman. And then they go into hyper mode again. So the thing to always watch, again, we don't have this optic because we're not, at that level of behind the scenes, is when a new thing breaks, when a new letter comes in from Congress, when a new public outcry happens, who starts trembling? What tremors in the force you see. So because again, what I do as a behaviorist is you look for deviations from patterns, from life arcs and norms. And anytime you see someone deviate from a behavior spike, something happened there to create a behavior spike. And so what I would be doing if I had the capability, because I don't see behind the scenes, no magic eyes, but I'd be taking this big 50,000 foot optic. And so when a letter from Raskin comes in, something like that comes in, what I want to see is, who all of a sudden starts changing their behavior? Who starts scrambling a little bit? Because that's where you then want to pay attention. Is like, someone's got a little bit of a stress attitude here, stress reaction. So what's causing it? Could be a bad day, but it could have been this. And so I'm always kind of looking for deviations from baselines. That's the only really thing you could do.
And that's what I'm wondering about right now with what we saw with Prince Andrew in the UK in the last week or two, where they stripped him of what's left basically of his titles and such. Is that damage control? Is that preparing for what may be about to come? Or is it just damage control from the book? And it's like, well, there's even more negative stuff coming out about Andrew. Or is it like, this is going to get really bad again really quick, and we'd like to already have been out in front of this going, we've already disowned him weeks ago or months ago or whatever it may be. So the royal family doesn't have this big, smudge all over them. If and when these names start dropping and we learn even more about these web of soul rippers.
Yeah. I think, again, my conjecture on it is that when you have something like the book come out and it names him so explicitly in that book, he's got his lawsuits that he's settled for, that was enough for them to say, hey, there's more here. And also because now it's become very evident that there's a lot of banking issues going on. It could tie up a lot more people, and it could get a lot. There's a lot more dirt there than's even in the book. Yeah. And I think that's why they took that action, because there's no denying it now. And that's why if I was everyone else, I'd be scrambling, if you're involved in this. And that's why I think there's a lot of silence. And that's why every time you see a letter coming in and it hits like this void, it hits like a black hole. That's very telling. It's never just what people are doing that is telling, it's what they're not doing. And when you see a collective silence, that says a lot. As much as it is one person or two people screaming about something, that says something about them. But when you hear a collective silence and like a dull thud when something hits, you're like, "Who?" That says a lot more about what everyone might know than what not. So
there's a lot that could very easily come out. I guess the other question I would have, and I'm interested in your perspective on, Eventually, they're going to have to seat the other congresswoman. That will then give us the enough people to vote to have this information come out, or have the Epstein files released. Who's to say what's going to be released is going to be of any sort of magnitude of information? I mean, what sort of powers does the DOJ have, basically, to redact pretty much everything and anything they want to, and it just becomes a document of words and names that are missing, and we're just left exactly where we are right now.
Yeah, that's probably what it will wind up being. I'd imagine, because they have all the sealed, because like Dufresne, she had a lot of sealed documents from the whatchamacallits, the grand juries. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of them haven't been unsealed yet. So I imagine there's other girls, all the other girls gave those statements as well. Those are going to be the real, what the what I'd be really interested in is the girl statements. Because those are going to be the ground truth. Those are going to be the granular. Those are going to be the gritty. And those are going to be the ones you really want to talk to. But those are the ones that are the most fearful as well.
Robin, what about the statute of limitations? Are we running out of time? This was asked by Jennifer Nicholson in our chat a while back. I wanted to get to that.
Yeah, and it's a great question, again, because this isn't my violation. I worked, but when I was reading in the book, here the statute of limitations is a big problem in this thing, because kind of a roundabout answer to that is the statute of limitations on these things is coming up. And what I found out by doing, and when we started covering this case, is the statute of limitations is such a small period of time. Meanwhile, women typically don't report these types of things until they hit their 40s. Because of that fear factor, because of working through the trauma, because they feel like it was their fault, because of the way that the groomers made them feel. And so that's why the statute of limitations a lot of times runs out on these things before they make the claims. And then they can start claiming things like false memories. And it's just, she said, she is willing, she's getting money for this. I mean, they're using all the standard tricks to re-victimize the girls on these things. So statute of limitations is definitely not on the victim side on this. This whole thing, the whole law system, the legal system needs to be revamped when it comes to this. Because I learned an awful lot, because we talk about on the show a lot the false memories that people will have over time. But when it comes to girls that have been abused like this, what happens to their memories is false memories and inaccurate memories can happen when it comes to timelines, when it happens to places and people, not people, places potentially. But when it comes to the individuals themselves, the most accurate is them. Because as Jenna said, when you have a 200 or 300 pound beast on top of you, inches from your face, you never forget that face.
Never. So
they're the ones that you really want to talk to on this. They're the only ones I would trust. Seriously, out of all this, I mean, I won't trust anything coming out of what the government says. I don't know how you make the girls, Nick, I don't know how you inspire the girls to feel safe to share the details of who they were with.
Because Virginia is just one of them, and there's so many more. But they have an interest in continuing their own lives. They have their own futures. They have their own families. They have their own world that they have, if they're still alive. Doesn't necessarily want to revolve around this horrible trauma of their past. But aside from them coming out and telling their stories, I don't know that anyone ever will. And I don't know that we're ever going to get to the bottom of it until all of this round of abusers that we're talking about here are dead and gone. And then they've essentially won because they got to live their life and get away with it. And then it just becomes some sort of historical detail of these monstrous characters that once roamed the earth.
And that's why I call them soul rippers.
I'm sorry, Robin. We're sending such a horrific message to survivors of assault. We're saying we don't care about your story. We're saying you're lying. You're making it up. And then there's this other narrative of you've got to tell your story. You have to speak up for yourself. So it's like just this thunderstorm just crashing against each other, and just none of it makes any sense.
It needs to be safe for them to tell their stories.
Exactly.
That's what we need is an environment where that
structure
exists.
Around you. Jenna talked about, that's why this book is such an important book. She talked about it so perfectly and beautifully in the book. I get so misty when I think about her in that book. She talked about, she wanted to, and she became an advocate for victims like her. but it came at a cost because she was re-traumatized every time she told the story, and she's trying to be just a mother and a wife, and she's trying to be the best step, but every time she's re-traumatized by this, it affected her family. Then the other thing is she was, as she said in her own words, she was unemployable because no one wanted to hire, in her mind, someone that was sex trafficked. And no one wanted to hire someone that was such a public figure. And so she had to take settlements because she had to provide for her family who was unemployable. I mean, it's just when you she allowed you to walk a mile in her shoes to get that deep, active empathy, to understand what goes on and what courage it takes, not just for her, but a team around her to stand with her, to fight the monster machine that Epstein created and all these other monsters create, because they know the system. So, I mean, think about it. So here's Epstein. He's got the most powerful lawyers in the world that know the legal system better than anyone else. They know the loopholes. They know the statute of limitations. And you combine that with their predatory grooming techniques. They know how to victimize so effectively that he operated with impunity. He's throwing little girls at anyone he wanted to without any fear, because and then Maxwell was doing the same thing. All she had to do was recruit one girl, and she then had that girl recruit all the other girls. It's not me, it's all the other girls. And then when they give them money in exchange, well, they're just money hungry. They're money grubbers. I mean, oh my God. Yeah. That's why that's why I use that word soul ripper, because these are not humans. They don't even resonate with the same species in my mind.
Yeah. They know how to work this in such an intricate, monstrous way that it is truly shocking. It's like, how are you processing anything? And this is how it comes out. There's so many questions, and we'll keep covering it. We'll keep seeing what happens here. As of this recording, on that letter that was sent to Bondi, they're demanding by the 10th that an answer is given, and as we've seen already from Bondi, super mature answers like your mother and things like that coming out.
That's a whole other thing.
Essentially, we're dealing with 5-year-olds running the government. I'm
the glass half full. I'm very positive about everything in the world, and here's the good news. Good news is this. Good news is shows like ours. There's a lot of people covering this, and a lot of people holding people accountable in ways they couldn't be held accountable before. Yeah. When Epstein started his monster factory, he had no idea that ever in the history of our species that these types of shows would be out there to force him to be compliant, to force the world to and allow these girls to feel safe to come forward. The more this happens, the better, because all the girls that even the girls were afraid to talk to each other. Jenna talked about that in the book. They're afraid to talk to each other. When they finally got together, she was holding a retreat from them all to get together. COVID shut it down before it actually happened. But it was just, they were afraid to even talk to each other. That's the fear they had. They couldn't even bond for a long time until they actually finally could, because the shame that they're made to feel. And that's how these horrendous soul rippers do it. God, anyway, I digressed again.
It's okay.
Your thoughts in the comments section. Everybody put it there. We'd love to hear it. Robin's latest book, Unbreakable Alliances. Go check it out wherever books are sold. And press subscribe as well. I'm going to go bathe in Purell again. I feel like every time we get into this one. But it's an important one, and I'm glad we can have these conversations, and this continues to need to be exposed. And if you feel the same need, share this so other people can hear about it, because I think that's half of it. A lot of people, they don't realize the depth of what the hell has been going on. So please do that. Until next time, for Robin, for Todd, for Stacy, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.